Here's a shift worth noting. Better healthcare is care that meets patients where they are. United Health Group is bringing it directly to living rooms. This is a win for patients managing chronic conditions. And here's the interesting thing. By closing those care gaps, administering in-home exams, and identifying risks earlier, more diseases can be prevented and patient outcomes can improve. In 2025 alone, United Health Group patients received over 19 million home visits. Learn more at unitedhealthgroup.com/commitment.
Hey, take a breath. You've been moving all day. Scrolling, answering, planning. But for the next few seconds, you get quiet. Now imagine warm light. A place where your shoulders finally drop and you feel like a kid again. Never lose that feeling. Never lose your splash. Visit Lauderdale.
America is home to more than 4.4 million miles of rivers and streams. In fact, most people in the U.S. live within a mile of one. These waterways provide drinking water, support wildlife, and shape local ecosystems. However, experts say many of them are in trouble. Half the rivers in the U.S. are so polluted that water quality for both drinking and recreating is unsafe. Chemical runoff from factories and farms are well-known culprits. But there's another, less obvious threat: dams. Across the country, tens of thousands of dams block the natural flow of rivers. While many were built for good reason, providing power, flood control, and water storage, experts say a large number have outlived their lifespan.
Dam removal is certainly the number one way of restoring a river. When you think of a river, you have to think of what is the fundamental characteristic of a river. It's its flow. And the flow in a river is never steady. It's like a heartbeat, and to keep our bodies healthy, sometimes we need to exercise. We really need to elevate our heartbeat. Rivers are the same. To keep a river healthy, sometimes you really need to have these high energy flows that move a lot of nutrients and materials through a river system. So by taking out a dam, what you are doing is immediately resuscitating a river's kind of natural heartbeat, that pulse of flows that defines its own health and the ecosystem that evolves from it.
That's Dr. Ann Willis, California Regional Director at the nonprofit American Rivers, and a senior advisor to the American Rivers Action Fund. She says even with landmark environmental laws on the books, including the Clean Water Act of 1970, the Endangered Species Act, and the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, healthy rivers are far from guaranteed.
The scope of these acts tends to change administration from administration. We saw an example of that recently when the Supreme Court decided in a recent decision, its Sackett decision, that the Clean Water Act did not apply as extensively as it had previously been interpreted. And that removed protections from the majority of surrounding wetlands and other areas that are integral to keeping our rivers healthy. So when acts and how they are applied are reinterpreted, that's a very fast way of changing the amount of protection that rivers have. And acts don't automatically apply to every mile of a river. They take intentional advocacy to make it happen. That's the case with the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. It exists, but there has to be congressional legislation that then applies that act to specific segments of rivers.
Willis says that currently only a small percentage of rivers in the U.S. have made it through that legislative process.
So there's really a huge opportunity and need for advocacy to ensure that these acts are both applied consistently and applied at all.
One such advocate is Amy Bowers Cordalis, author of The Water Remembers: My Indigenous Family's Fight to Save a River and a Way of Life. She's also a Yurok tribal member. The Yurok have been fishing salmon on the Klamath River in southern Oregon for hundreds of years. In 1911, the first of 4 dams was built on the Klamath when Cordalis's grandmother was just a child. 3 more dams were completed by 1964.
There were about 2,000 acres of reservoirs behind the 4 dams, and every summer there would be toxic blue-green algae blooms in those reservoirs, and then that would flow down the whole river, and it would pollute the river, and it caused all kinds of fish diseases. Of course, the one I write about in the book is the 2002 fish kill, but there were also baby fish kills, the little babies, the outmigrating babies that really for several years were just killed by a fish disease because of bad water quality.
Cordalis formed the Ridges to Ripples Indigenous Conservation Group, working decades alongside countless others to bring the 4 dams down and restore the Klamath. The effort took decades, but finally the group was victorious. Klamath Dam removal began in September 2023. The final dam came down in 2024. Cordalis says today the Klamath River is thriving.
And it is remarkable to witness its recovery. It's something that I obviously hoped for and worked for my whole life. My ancestors hoped for its healing, but I never really knew with certainty if I would witness it in my lifetime. The final dam came down in September of 2024, and that reconnected the river for the first time in 100 years. 3 days later, adult salmon went past the former dam site and up into historical spawning grounds they hadn't been able to access in over 100 years. And then this year, they have come back as adults in numbers 30% greater than last year. And so we're just sort of seeing, from a Yurok perspective, we call it world renewal, where the world is literally coming back into balance. And so we're seeing that through the salmon's return.
The Klamath River Dam Removal Project was the largest such undertaking in U.S. history. Willis says it's hard to quantify whether the Klamath River is 30, 50, or 80% restored.
We're encouraged that the health of the river is certainly outperforming anybody's predictions. We know this because of ongoing water quality monitoring that's happening in the river, looking at levels of nutrients in the river, looking at temperature levels in the river, looking at dissolved oxygen in the river. So we know that the river is rapidly on its way to recovery, but time will tell how quickly that happens. And it really goes to show how the fastest way to restore a river is really to get out of its way. We, the community, the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, took 4 outdated, obsolete, large pieces of infrastructure out of the river, and immediately the river started to heal itself.
Willis says that many dams in the U.S. were constructed in the early to mid-1900s when hydroelectric power was quickly growing. At the time, it was cutting-edge infrastructure. However, today there are many other ways to produce electricity, including wind and solar, that can create power more efficiently and at a lower cost.
When we think about a dam, it has a useful lifetime. They were never meant to be permanent. So when a dam comes to the end of its lifetime, it's really important to ask the question, is this still the right technology we need to provide the service to communities? Or are there better, cheaper, safer, more reliable ways to do it that then also give us the benefit of being able to restore key environments in our rivers?
Over the last century, more than 2,000 dams in the U.S. have been removed. Yet roughly 90,000 remain, many of them aging structures that no longer serve a clear purpose.
The one thing that I love to share with people is that, I wasn't a river person growing up. I was one of these people who lived within a mile of a river and didn't know it. And so it's really become wonderful to me to share the stories of rivers, but then to also ask people, find your river, find that place that is near where you live, because I guarantee that there is something wonderful to be discovered there, and it's worth learning about.
Amy Bowers Cordalis says her book is a blueprint for advocacy groups working on river restoration through dam removal. Her book, The Water Remembers: My Indigenous Family's Fight to Save a River and a Way of Life, is available now online and can be requested through your local bookstore. To find out more about our guests this week, visit viewpointsradio.org. This story was written and produced by Polly Hansen. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jay Silvers. I'm Marty Peterson.
Hi, I'm Michael from the War and Treaty. You know the jingle. Now discover the facts about Ozempic, a GLP-1. Only Novo Nordisk makes FDA-approved Ozempic. Learn about the real thing.
Talk to your healthcare professional today. Call 1-833-OZEMPIC or visit Ozempic.com to view the medication guide and to learn more about Ozempic. Semaglutide injection 0.5 milligram, 1 milligram, and 2 milligrams.
Right now, new FanDuel customers can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. Place a tournament bet using the token, and if it doesn't win, you'll get up to $300 back in bonus bets every single day for 10 days straight. You can even mix things up with same-game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. FanDuel, it's time to dance.
21 plus in President Select States. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable and expire 7 days after receipt. Tokens are received in increments of 1 per day. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.